Hey everyone, it's Dawn here, and I totally forgot. I was going to make a video telling you about how that new EX30 latest firmware, the one that ends in 5005, went. Short version is it's good. Well, okay. I think Show Scott, well, first off, Show Scott was the one that let me know that this one is out, this one is good, and he said, yeah, go ahead and install this one. So big thanks to him for thinking of me and letting me know that that was up. And I guess Celeste tried it. I don't know, Celeste, you can speak up if you see this. And the oscillations was worse is what I've heard. I don't know, is that a rumor? Don't know, but there is that possibility. For me, I tried it out yesterday. We ended up doing like 100 some miles up in the mountains, and I ran it fast and everything, and I got up high in the 50s for speed, 50 miles an hour, and for me it was good, but it was a huge change. So this firmware is supposed to fix the EX30 high-speed oscillation issue. And it also takes away your wheel beeps. Your wheel beeps are the beeps that you can hear coming out of the wheel. Okay, those are the wheel beeps. The other beeps are like the beeps that go through an app like EUC World or Darkness Spot, where you have the app connect to the wheel, and in the app you tell it that at 80% PWM, 85, 90% PWM, whatever it is, that it beeps at you into your helmet or whatever, and it tells you, yeah, you're at 80%. You can also set it by speed, you can set it by all sorts of things, but those are what we call the helmet beeps. So your wheel beeps are now disabled with the new firmware, and oh, and then the loud idle, the loud noise coming from the wheel at idle, which I showed you, let you listen to in the last video. So for the oscillations, now I haven't had true oscillation, high-speed oscillation issues, I don't think. The issues that I've had was that it would just randomly jerk left or right or something like that. And some people think that it might be tire related, the ground related, like as if it was tracking or things like that. To me, I don't feel like that. I feel that it was wind related, and I feel like when I taped up those sides, you know, on the EX30, you have all those slits right underneath the motherboard, between the motherboard and the or the seat or whatever and the batteries. Then they have those slits that, I don't know, wind goes through there and it catches or something like that, or it tickles under the motherboard, because I do know that when I use my air compressor and blow under there, then it does make the wheel have oscillations. And then I go, okay, well, what happens at higher speeds? And if it hits at a certain angle and stuff like that, you know, a lot more wind hitting there certain ways, it might do something funky. That's how I'm thinking about it. But it might also be totally whack. So there is that. But the high-speed oscillation is supposed to be a forward and backward jerking motion. And that is supposed to happen anywhere starting from 40 miles an hour up. And I don't know if there's a correlation with low battery, high battery, like a full battery versus a lower battery level and things like that. But this firmware is supposed to update it, and I don't know if it has. Show says it has. We'll need more people to test. So for me, yesterday in testing, what I noticed immediately was that my EX30 now runs completely different. Like I had to relearn it, and I had to change some things. Before, the EX30 was a little bit tough to accelerate, and I didn't really have a problem because I can ride the EX30 just fine, and I was running my fastest Strava times at GMR, Glendora Mountain Road, with the EX30. So I was running GMR Strava times faster on the EX30 than any other wheel that I've had. So obviously it's not that big of an issue to me. But one of the things that I did with my EX30 is I had a forward tilt of -2. With this new firmware, I had to back that off because now the acceleration is so good on the EX30. It's so easy to gun it, so easy to ride and stuff like that, especially with that -2 forward tilt angle. So played around with it, set it back to 0-degree tilt, which is level, and then that felt closer to what it was before, but a little bit too sluggish. So now I have it set at -1 tilt, forward tilt. So I think that is good. But if I really wanted super fast acceleration, I would go back to -2. It's just that with -2, along with super fast acceleration, I was having to brake a lot, and it was my thighs are burning today from all of that effort. With -1 or 0, just leaning back, I was able to brake. I'm calling it in my head engine braking, because that's what it feels like. It feels like just by leaning back, I get engine braking versus having to actually really fight to brake, which then burns my thighs. With engine braking, there's no burning of the thighs, is a difference. So how does it feel now? Okay, it feels like, and this is going to sound whack, so if you're not used to me and my whack theories and all that, just shut this off, because you're going to end up, after the end of this, thinking that I'm just crazy, which I am, but still. All right, so what it feels like is I had my EX30, right? I got good with it and everything, and I got to where I loved the way it rides and all that. I put this firmware on, and all of a sudden it is like slipperier and quicker, more responsive, basically feels just like a master now. Before, I would say that the EX30 felt like a beast. It felt heavy. It felt, not sluggish, but it was a beast to kind of push to accelerate. Now all of that is gone. Now it just feels like a master. A heavier master, but it feels like a master. Quick, responsive, easy acceleration, zip, zip, And one of the things with the EX30 was it's so stable. I can engine brake and all that, and it would just brake with me. Now I lean back and I have to fight for it to brake, and so I get a little bit of the shimmies and the wobbles now braking because that engine braking is no longer there. So then when I was telling Marty this, he's looking at me like I'm crazy because the ride yesterday was like 100 some miles with Marty and a group. So, at one of the breaks, I was trying to explain this to Marty, and he's looking at me like I'm crazy, and I go, okay, think of it this way. You have a sports car, and when you run it in the lower gears, then you have engine braking, you have a lot of torque, you got a lot of grunt, you got a lot of, right? And then you run it in the higher gears, and now you don't have that, and now it's zippier, it's looser on the track, and it's more acceleration and higher speeds But if you want, if you want like to take a turn and not brake and do all that quick, then what you do is you downshift, and then you just use engine braking with the lower gears, right? So that's what I feel like this firmware update did. It took the EX30, which was running on lower gears, and it shifted it, and now this is an EX30 running on higher gears. So a little bit more squigglier, but quicker off the start, quicker acceleration, more responsive, but a little more squiggly. So now the squiggly, I could adjust that with the forward tilt and with the tilt settings. So what you do is you go into the app and you say recalibrate or calibration, and then you set your tilt. So at 0, then I felt like I had my engine braking back. I felt like, it was a little harder to accelerate, which can be good because then it's also easier to brake. And I don't know, it felt more like pre-firmware. And then But I also really like that quick acceleration, which would be -2. And then I settled to -1, which was in the middle of the road for me. So I got around and adjusted it by using the calibration. And now I think it feels really good for me. Like, I feel like if I wanted super quick acceleration, I might have to adjust my pads a little bit more and get a more ideal pad setting now. And you know, I don't know, maybe try some other little tiny tweaks here and there, but it's good. It's good. And stability and everything, I still had that. And power delivery. So I guess with this new firmware is it changes the way the power is delivered or accessed by the wheel to the wheel. And it is good. Before, there was, at the higher ends, there feel like there would be a drop in power, and so then you kind of feel like really soft, squishy pedals. You kind of feel like you could over torque it, you could overpower it, and it might just cut out on you, sort of thing. Yesterday, I didn't feel that for the most part, except for one incident when I was gunning it out of a turn. I did feel it drop a little bit, like it wasn't a true pedal dip, but I did feel it drop a little bit, like it was thinking about it, and then I backed off, and then I never felt it since. But that's also me, you know, testing the firmware for the first time, pushing it a little bit, trying it out, and getting to know it. So once I felt that, then I was like, okay, maybe that is a limit, mental note, and then after that, I didn't have any more problems. Then all throughout the power range, it felt good and stable and reliable, not spiky like the Master. So really good power delivery, whatever they did over there. So that's good. Let's see what else. Power delivery felt smooth. It felt reliable. Beeps. The helmet beeps going to my head were reliable. They were good. They came on as it should, and it was trustworthy as far as I could tell. And I was riding the beeps, my helmet beeps, pretty good. So, you know, really happy with that as well, because having reliable beeps is something that I trusted with my Sherman Max the best. And then I noticed that the Sherman S had really good beeps, and like trustworthy beeps is what I mean by good beeps. And the Commander Pro had really good trustworthy beeps. And the Master does not. Master does not. And I still don't trust the Master beeps just because of the spikes. And now this EX30, this is the first time on the EX30, I feel like it has good, reliable beeps. Like when it beeps, I feel like all the power delivery and everything was all safe up to the beeps. And when the beep, then it gave me enough time. I could back off and be perfectly safe, and then push on, and then ride the beeps, have extended beep time, and all the power was there and everything. So that was good. Another very interesting thing about this new firmware, and you guys can check this out as well and let me know, is that, and I know Roger tested this as well, so these are two incidences that I know so far. Lift up your wheel and do a spin test. You know how we always do our spin test, and we lift it up and we tilt it, we make it spin, and then when it gets to 100 PWM, then it cuts out, right? It stops. There's no more cutout on the EX30 with this new firmware. So Roger said that he did it, and he didn't want to go too long, but he couldn't get it to cut out. He had to physically, you know, straighten it back out, let it slow down, and then set it down. It wouldn't ever cut out at the free spin. So I tried it, and I'm a little less careful or knowledgeable than Roger. I'm like shoving it, and I'm like trying to get it to cut out. I'm like, holy, it's not cutting out. That's awesome. I'm like, and it's not cutting out. So I'm like, whoa, what does that mean then? My top speed was still the same, and you know, it wasn't cutting out, and it was smooth, and it just kept pushing at that 100% PWM, but not cutting out. And that is like amazing. So I'm not sure exactly what they're changing or what they're doing, but this is something new, I think, because all other wheels I've always been able to make cutouts. So they're experimenting with something different, something new, and I'm excited about it because it didn't cut out. Now, does this mean that, is this the first step towards like no more over torque, no more cutouts and stuff like that? I don't know. Maybe. Roger says no. I think I asked him that question, and I think the answer was no, but he can, you know, if you want to hear things, I always say go to the source, right? So like, because I don't know, things people say and it comes into my brain, I could hear something different, and plus I don't understand everything I'm told. So yeah, you'll have to ask him about that. But I think it is something, it's definitely something different. It's definitely something strange. It's definitely something, I think, towards the right direction of what we all want, which is no more cutouts and stuff like that. So I don't know what this means, but I'm excited about it and I'm all for it. So that is, I think that is everything I wanted to tell you about the new firmware. And then of course, with these changes, if it goes well, hopefully they will be able to fix the wheel. Well, they have to fix the wheel beeps. They'll fix the wheel beeps. Maybe they can fix that engine idle noise. Although, remember my last video, I said, has anyone tried this? Is yours making an awful engine noise? And is it worth it to put up? And I can tell you now, yes, absolutely worth it to deal with the no more wheel beeps and the engine idle noise. Worth it, worth it. The performance updates to how it runs now is great. Now, then there is the rumor about Celeste, the high-speed oscillation getting worse with the new firmware. So obviously, if that's the case, then it's not 100% across the board yet. But hopefully, you know, I mean, they're still working on it. And so far as I know, this is the first iteration of it that has even gotten close to being really good update. So it's still work in progress, as is always. But it'll be interesting because this will probably set a precedence for wheels going forward as well. So that's exciting and awesome. Anyways, I think that is all from me for now. Thank you for joining me. Please hit the like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Thank you for supporting my channel, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.